lamps of gold, until one night he woke with a scream caught behind his teeth, drenched in sweat, grasping at a dream that dissolved even as he reached for it. By morning the whole court had been summoned. Magicians, enchanters, astrologers crowded into the throne room before the sun had fully risen. "I have dreamed a dream," the king said, "and I will not rest until I know its meaning. Tell us the dream, O king, and we will give the interpretation." "No, you will tell me the dream itself and its meaning. Fail, and you and your houses become rubble. Succeed, and there is no reward I will not give you." The wise men went white. "My lord, no man on earth can do what you ask. Only the gods could know a dream they never spoke aloud, and the gods do not live among men." Nebuchadnezzar's fury did not raise his voice. It simply hardened his face. "Then you have sold me guesses for years and called them wisdom. Kill them, all the wise men of Babylon." The order swept the city like fire through straw. And because Daniel and his friends were counted among the king's wise men, the soldiers came for them too. Daniel opened the door before they could knock. "Why such a harsh decree and such haste?" he asked the commander calmly. The king dreamed, and the dream escaped him. He wants it back, word for word, and its meaning besides. No one could give it, so now everyone dies. "Take me to him," Daniel said. "Ask for one night. Give me until morning, and I will bring him the interpretation." That night, not a single lamp in the exiles' quarters went dark. The four knelt and prayed, not politely, but as men who had nothing left to lose, pleading not only for their own lives, but for every condemned soul in Babylon. Hour by hour, the torches of the city burned down until their voices had thinned to whispers in the dark. And heaven answered. Daniel lifted his face from prayer, and something like a whole sky of stars kindled behind his eyes. He saw, not a fragment, but the whole shape of the king's dream, unveiled entire. He wept first, then he prayed again, this time in thanksgiving. "Blessed be the name of God from age to age. Wisdom and strength belong to you. You raise up kings and cast them down. You uncover what is hidden in darkness because light lives with you. You heard 4 exiles in a foreign land. At dawn, he was brought before the throne." "Belteshazzar," the king said, "can you tell me the dream and its meaning?" "No wise man or diviner can uncover what you ask, my king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has shown you what will come, not because I am wise, but so that you would know the thoughts of your own heart." He described it precisely, a colossal statue, gold-headed, silver-chested, bronze at the belly, iron in the legs, feet mixed with clay, and a stone, cut by no human hand, that struck the statue at its feet and brought the whole towering thing down into dust the wind carried away. And the stone grew until it filled the earth. "You, my king, are the head of gold," Daniel said. "After you will rise a lesser kingdom, then a third, then a fourth, as hard and crushing as iron. But in the days of those kings, a kingdom will rise that cannot be destroyed, one that will outlast every empire that ever tried to be eternal. The most powerful man alive came down from his throne and put his face to the floor in front of an exiled boy from Judah. Now I know," he said, "that your God stands above every god I have ever worshipped." Daniel was made governor of the province of Babylon, and at his request, his 3 friends were given authority over its affairs as well. 3. The furnace. But a dream, once survived, can curdle into something else in a proud man's memory. Nebuchadnezzar returned to it again and again, not in fear now, but in appetite. He looked at the tribute piled before his throne and thought, gold. He looked at his city stretching to every horizon and thought, mine. One afternoon he unrolled a drawing before his craftsmen. The statue in my dream had a head of gold. The gold was me. Everything after, silver, bronze, iron, clay, comes after me. His jaw set. This one will not be like the dream. This one will be gold from head to foot. He ordered it built on the plain of Dura, 60 cubits of solid gold, blazing under the sun like a second sunrise. When it was finished, every official of the empire was summoned to stand before it. Satraps, governors, judges, from every conquered tongue under Babylon's rule, until the plain was a sea of people. From one horizon to the other, a herald read the decree. At the sound of every instrument in the royal orchestra, all were to bow to the golden image. Anyone who refused would be thrown, without a second warning, into a furnace already roaring behind the statue, its heat bending the air. The music rose, and the empire bent like a single body. Governors, generals, priests, a human ocean pressed, face down into the dust. 3 men remained standing. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, side by side, their eyes lifted past the statue to the sky. It didn't take long for someone to notice. Certain courtiers who had spent years watching these 3 Hebrews rise at court now hurried to the platform with barely concealed satisfaction. There are Jews you elevated, my king, who show you no regard. They do not serve your gods, and they will not bow to your image. Nebuchadnezzar's face hardened. The 3 were brought before him. One more chance, he said. Bow when the music plays, or burn, and what God will save you out of my hand? Their answer did not waver. We don't need to defend ourselves to you on this point, my king. If our God chooses to save us from the fire, he will. And if he doesn't, we still will not serve your gods, and we still will not bow to the gold you have set up. Fury transfigured the king's face. Heat the furnace 7 times hotter than it has ever burned. The blaze grew so fierce that the soldiers who carried the 3 men to its mouth were themselves consumed at the threshold, and the 3, bound in their own robes, were hurled into the heart of the flame. Nebuchadnezzar sat to watch what fire does to men who defy kings. Then he went still. Did we not throw 3 men in, bound? We did, my king. Then why do I count 4, walking, unbound, and the 4th, like a son of the gods? He came down from his platform himself and approached as close to the furnace as any man could bear. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. They walked out at a calm pace, while the fire still roared behind them. Not a hair singed, not a thread of their robes touched by smoke. Blessed be their God, the king said before the whole court, who sent his angel to save the men who trusted him, rather than bow to any god but their own. Let no one in my kingdom speak against him, for there is no other God who saves this way. 4. The tree and the years of the beast. Years of peace followed, and prosperity, and Nebuchadnezzar grew comfortable on his throne, until another dream found him. This time there was no statue. There was a tree, vast beyond reason, its crown touching the sky, visible from the ends of the earth, sheltering every beast beneath its branches, and feeding every living thing from its fruit. Then the sky itself opened, and a voice descended like a verdict. Cut down the tree, strip its branches, scatter its fruit, but leave the stump bound in iron and bronze, left to the dew of heaven and the company of beasts, until 7 seasons pass, and it learns that the Most High rules the kingdoms of men, and gives them to whomever he chooses. The king woke, and, unlike before, remembered every word. He sent at last for Daniel, the counselor whose answers he always dreaded most. Daniel listened and went pale, and was silent so long the king grew afraid. Belteshazzar, don't let the dream trouble you. My king, may this dream belong to your enemies, not to you. The tree is you. Your greatness has grown until it reaches heaven itself. But the voice that ordered it, cut down, is a sentence. You will be driven from among men, given the mind of a beast, until you learn that the Most High rules every kingdom on earth and gives it to whomever he wills. Turn from your sins, my king. Show mercy to the poor. Perhaps your peace can still be prolonged. 12 months passed. Nothing happened. The warning settled quietly under the weight of untroubled days. Then, walking the palace terrace and looking out over the whole spread of his city, Nebuchadnezzar said aloud, "Is this not the Babylon I built by my own strength, for my own glory?" The words were still in the air when the sentence fell. His mind emptied like a cup poured out. He did not know his own hands. He did not know the city below him. He was driven from the palace that same hour, and for 7 seasons he lived among the cattle of the royal fields, hair matted into something like feathers, nails grown into something like claws, eating grass on all fours, while the dew of heaven fell on him night after night. And then, on an ordinary dawn, something in him lifted its eyes to the sky, not as a beast lifts its eyes, but as a man does. Understanding returned to him the way a tide returns, and the first thing he did with his restored mind was give praise. "I bless the Most High," he said, kneeling in the wet grass, "whose kingdom endures from age to age, before whom all who live on earth are as nothing, whose hand no one can stay." He was found, washed, dressed again in purple, and restored to his throne, greater this time than before, because he had learned the one lesson gold could never teach him. 5. The hand on the wall. Kings age and pass, as all men do, and the crown of Babylon eventually came to Belshazzar, a descendant who had inherited the throne, the wealth, and none of the Humi, Elite. On the night the story turns, the palace blazed with 1,000 torches, while an army, Median and Persian, sat camped outside the walls. Belshazzar laughed at them across his wine. "Walls this wide, grain enough for 20 years. Let them camp out there until their grandchildren die of old age." Deep in the wine, his eye fell on a row of golden vessels set apart in an alcove, sacred cups his father had kept untouched, carried out of a conquered temple in Jerusalem a lifetime before. "Bring them here," he said, smiling. "Let the king, his nobles, his wives, drink from the God of the Jews' own cups." And they did. Babylonian wine, filling holy gold, passed hand to hand, while priests praised gods of stone and wood and silver that could neither see nor hear. The toast had barely left 1,000 throats when the sound in the hall died, not faded, but stopped all at once, like a candle pinched out. In the space above the lampstand, fingers appeared. No arm, no body, only fingers, writing across the plaster in strokes that looked burned rather than drawn. Belshazzar's cup slipped from his hand. His face changed color. His knees knocked together before the whole court could look away. "Bring the enchanters," he managed. "Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means will wear purple and rule as third in my kingdom." One by one, the wise men approached the burning letters. One by one, they backed away, unable to read a word. It was the Queen Mother who remembered. "There is a man in your kingdom, my king, who has done this before. Daniel, whom your grandfather made chief of all the wise men. Send for him." He came slowly across the ruined banquet hall, an old man now, 70 years removed from the boy dragged out of Jerusalem, his hair long since gone white. "Keep your purple, your gold chain, your third of a falling kingdom," Daniel told him. "I'll read it anyway." He reminded the king, briefly and without softening it, what had happened to Nebuchadnezzar's pride and what it had cost him to get it back. "And you, Belshazzar, knew all this and did not humble your heart. You drank from the vessels of his house and praised gods that cannot hear you. The God who holds your very breath, him you did not honor." Then he read the wall. "Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. God has numbered your kingdom's days and brought them to an end. You have been weighed on the scale and found wanting. Your kingdom will be divided and given to Media and Persia." That same night, while the promised purple was still being fastened around Daniel's neck, the river running beneath the city's walls, diverted upstream by Persian engineers, sank low enough for soldiers to wade through the gates, left carelessly open for a feast no one expected to be their last. Belshazzar was killed before morning. Darius the Mede received the kingdom by daybreak, and no siege, no fire. The city that had devoured 100 nations simply woke up, belonging to someone else. 6. The Den Darius, unlike conquerors who erase what came before them, listened first to the story of the forgotten dream, the untouched fire, the hand on the wall, and set Daniel among the 3 chief officials over his whole empire, above 120 provincial governors. Daniel outperformed them all. His accounts balanced, his judgments held, and no province under his watch ever cheated the crown. Darius began to consider raising him above everyone. The other officials, watching their own influence shrink, went looking for a fault to use against him and found nothing. No error, no bribe, no failure in decades of service. "We'll never find grounds against him in his work," one finally admitted. "If we're going to bring him down, it will have to be through his God." They came to Darius together with a proposal dressed as flattery, a 30-day decree that anyone who prayed to any god or man but the king himself would be thrown to the lions. Signed into the unbreakable law of the Medes and Persians, it could never be revoked, not even by the king who signed it. Darius signed. Daniel heard the decree had been sealed, understood exactly who it had been written for, and did precisely what he always did. 3 times that day, he knelt at the open window facing Jerusalem, as he had every day for nearly 70 years, and prayed without hiding it, without so much as pulling the curtain. He was watched, reported, and brought before the king by evening. Darius, realizing too late whose trap he had signed his name to, spent the whole day searching the law for any loophole that might spare him. There was none. The law that could not be changed bound the king, who made it as tightly as it bound Daniel. At sundown, Darius gave the order himself. "Your God, whom you serve without fail, may he deliver you," he said, and Daniel was lowered into the den. A stone sealed the mouth of it, marked with the king's own signet, so nothing could be tampered with in the night. Darius returned to the palace, refused his dinner, sent away the music, and did not sleep. At first light, he ran, not sent servants, went himself, to the den, and called down with a voice that had clearly not rested all night. "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to save you?" "O king, may you live forever," came the answer, steady from the dark below. "My God sent his angel and shut the mouths of the lions. They have not touched me, because I was found blameless before him, and I have done no wrong before you either." The king's relief broke over him visibly. He ordered the stone rolled back, and Daniel was lifted out without a single mark on him. The men who had engineered the trap were thrown into the same den in his place, and did not survive to reach the floor. Darius wrote to every nation under his rule that day that the God of Daniel was to be honored in every corner of his empire, a living God whose kingdom would never be destroyed, who rescues and delivers and works wonders in heaven and on earth. 7. What was sealed for later? Daniel prospered through the reigns of Darius and then Cyrus. But for years, his nights had belonged to more than the kingdoms he served. Long before the den, in the first year of Belshazzar's reign, he had dreamed of 4 beasts rising out of a storm-churned sea, a lion with eagle's wings, a bear gorging itself, a 4-headed leopard, and a 4th creature unlike anything born on earth, iron-toothed, crowned with 10 horns, and then an 11th, small and arrogant, that spoke as though it could outlast heaven itself. Then the vision changed. Thrones were set. A river of fire poured out before a figure of pure light, seated at the center of it all, served by more than could be counted, while the small horns boasting shrank to nothing beneath that court. The 4th beast was destroyed, and out of the clouds came one like a son of man, brought before the Ancient of Days, and given a dominion that would never pass to anyone else and would never end. Daniel had woken from that vision shaken, and had kept every detail on a scroll he carried with him for the rest of his life, through a ram broken by a goat, through horns rising and falling, through visions that left him ill for days, and only partly understood. Decades before, he had the peace that made sense of them. That peace came from an old scroll, not a new vision, Jeremiah's writings, read by lamplight in the first year of Darius. 70 years, the prophet had written, for Jerusalem's desolation. Daniel counted the reigns on his fingers, Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, and counted his own years since the desert road, and understood the appointed time was closing. He tore his robes, put on sackcloth, and prayed on his knees for his people's guilt as much as his own. And before the prayer had finished leaving his mouth, the room filled with a light that came from no lamp, and a messenger stood before him. Daniel, Gabriel said, I have come to give you understanding. From the moment you began praying, your words were heard, and I have come because you are deeply loved. For one breath, there was no vision, no prophecy, no empire, only an old man hearing, after 70 years of exile, and every throne he had ever stood before, that he was loved. Then came the weeks, 70 of them, decreed for his people and his holy city, counting down toward an anointed one who would be cut off, and a city and sanctuary that would fall again before the end finally came. Years later, by the bank of the Tigris, in mourning and fasting, Daniel lifted his eyes and saw a figure of fire and bronze, whose voice was like the sound of a crowd. The men with him fled without seeing anything, leaving him alone, face to the ground, until a hand lifted him onto trembling knees. Daniel, greatly loved, do not be afraid. Your words were heard from the first day you humbled yourself. I was delayed by a battle you cannot see, fought above the nations while the nations slept, a war behind every empire's rise and fall that no chronicler will ever record. The messenger unrolled centuries before him, kings rising and falling, empires splitting to the 4 winds, wars without end, until the account reached its own horizon, a time of distress unlike any before it, and a deliverance for everyone whose name was written down, some waking to life, some to shame, and those who had led others toward what was right, shining like the stars, forever and ever. My lord, Daniel asked, how does it end? Go your way, Daniel. These words are sealed until the end of days. Many will be refined and tested, and the wise will understand. A pause. gentler than a king's decree. You will rest and rise to your place at the end of the days.